Just to try and have that opportunity to bring back Akira, but almost seems like he's just delaying the inevitable at this point, Levin, because even if he does manage to make that reboot play, how far away from the zone are they going to be in comparison to everyone else making it into the edge? He's just going to have to worry constantly about getting beamed. And their loadouts are just grim. They have to farm. They've got to do everything to bring this one back.
Yeah, Policide's already tanked so much Storm. It's really looking quite dire for them. At this point in the game, you sort of do everything you need to do, right, as far as get a loadout, loot up, but you're really just hoping and praying. No riding for Strokey. This is about as free as it's going to get for them, potentially, here today. Okay, don't play with your food too much. They get the LM.
See. It's just a tough break that happens sometimes, though. Podeside did everything in his power to try and correct course, and the issue, though, is that there's always another team inside a Storm. With the way that this comp meta has been broken down, is now Yanis, Rax closing in. They want to try and build a little bit more points here. They're solid in terms of global championship, but at the same time, prize pool still up for grabs. And they're going to need this elimination because they've definitely been hurting in terms of their material count and everything else. That initial off-spawn fight being so much messier than what they'd hoped for has just put them in a constant cycle of trying to recover the game. And what makes it even worse still is that they're not the only ones. 240 below, though, currently. They need to find an immediate refresh. And they've got to hope that the duo that they take out has some builds to go with it.
Yeah, this is so awkward. And ultimately, this is actually one of the examples we're going to see of just where you are a team playing the Storm and you have almost none of the benefits whatsoever of playing the Storm. You're almost still in congestion. Obviously, a lot of players have finally started to leave because Zone is quite a ways away, but there was like 5 other teams around them there. It's not even like you're taking an isolated fight. You still have to be wary. And then you just have this insanely long route to make with so much to do. No whites. Janice, it's gonna be free loot. Frosty will keep his rotation going. But that was one of the things I was really curious about today, Taco, as far as we saw the success across EU and NA of the teams who didn't overly rely on playing the Storm. And so I actually didn't know what to expect of this lobby, right? As far as like, I'm sure there would have been plenty of the players in this lobby watching back and thinking, okay, maybe we shouldn't be playing as much Storm as we did try and play in Grands. But then does that counteract the effect? Because now less people are playing Storm, so actually it's not as bad to play Storm. And so you have this sort of weird cycle that sort of permeates through. And I think that's why we're seeing so many different teams, I think, in this lobby just find success in these games, because it's become sort of game on a game-to-game basis based off of the zones and the pools. Venus and Franic have had, you know, bits of success in both different scenarios today. But once more, Taco, we watch one of them as a solo moving into this endgame where they are still fighting for a global spot.
And it just becomes all the more problematic too, because yeah, so many teams just choosing to try and reshape their game plans on the fly. Again, it just really creates so many dilemmas for everyone else involved, because you just don't really know what to anticipate. You're not really sold on playing the Storm, but you're also not super sold on wanting to be some of the first into the zone either, just because there are teams already finding their elevated positions. I know some of these duos, they are hoping that if they caught glimpse of Dinas going down in the elimination feed, or excuse me, Frenetic, that Dinas follows shortly after, because even with them having a pretty strong start to the day, if they can't continue to replicate those early successes, things are going to eventually fizzle out, because there's always that last push, it seems like, in these types of competitions, especially when you approach that Game 5 territory.
Yeah, I'm curious to see just how he rotates this. You can see him at the bottom left there in one of the not ideal spots. A couple of teams ahead of him as he will look to make his way into the zone. Has 2 overdrive nades to use, and so the timing is going to be pivotal. Nosif and Izzy starting from a bit higher up, and so their initial nade will take them a decent journey, but making probably the right play here.
Separating, because this game could be the one to help them play leapfrog on those leaderboard positions. Setting up already, but it's Hari and Cammy who could potentially be caught in a little bit of a crossfire here. They know I dropped Gonzo just across the way. Gotta be a little bit cautious here, even essentially debating. They're gonna drop, it looks like, before opting to go forward, but I dropped in Gonzo. They might have to look elsewhere, trying to force a little bit of damage, because they are currently underneath.
And it's such a shame for iDrop. I mean, if it was 12 months ago, he'd just be able to hop over and just get in Cammy and Hari's box and get all the help he needs. This time around, here in duos, that isn't an option for him, and so he's going to have to rely on Gonzo's abilities. Just enough to get above on Surge, but not the most comfortable positions for this duo, especially knowing that there will be so many more teams in this.
Certainly not doing them too much of a favor in this one. Izzy and Nosif, on the other hand, though, they're going to need a refresh almost immediately, just passing back and forth. The only chug jug they have available. Now looking down, realizing Pstroki injured. They got the shield crack. They're trying to chase him down, but Pstroki barely managing. Wait just for a second there. Nosif, though, able to claim it after the fact, so that slight addition of materials helping him to just go one more layer.
Chap and Flixie, the ones to apply the pressure. Demush, 10 a limb so far today, but the one he needs to hit won't connect it. It's Chap and Flixie. After a very impressive height take, we called it earlier on. You could see they were sniffing it out, and that's exactly why they deliver the win, Taco.
They were frothing at the mouth to bring this one home, and they got the job done after all. So Frankie Takata Mini, what do you guys have to say?
Mentioned, I really like that height take. It was a really nicely timed one because they waited for eye drop just to drop on down and try and claim a few of the lower layers and try and maybe get some refreshes. That's the moment they pounced. So they were really patient, really effective, and of course closed out the game with a win.
But it makes sense. These are two legacy players. They played with some of the best IGLs in the game and now coming together with all of that knowledge and their mechanical skill. qualified 18 duos from Europe in the lobby in Antwerp, Belgium. I'm going to breathe after that extremely long sentence. Let's take a look at the overall leaderboard, because we've got some big names who are doing big things today. There is a top prize of $40,000 tonight. And right now, Chap and Flixie are looking good for it, but they have got competition by a number of duos who also haven't qualified.
Momsy Sato, though, so far are looking good. I mean, they got 10th in the last match, so it's not bad at all, especially considering they started the day very poorly, Mini, but from a 5th, 10th, they have shot themselves up quickly, that leaderboard.
Yeah, I really like the way they played a lot of this end game as well. They were sort of using their layer really effectively, and it's something that we broke down at the beginning of the day. What Sky and Scroll do really good is sort of getting to that front side of zone, building into it, and tanking a lot of that storm and using a lot of those heals to actually get that health back up. They did that really well, which of course gave them so much piece control, so much real estate to actually operate in. And if they can continue to do things like that, they just need to try and stay afloat in these end games, because it is so close there, as you mentioned, Takata. This is a real tight finish right now. Good for Hutty and Fishy, of course, as well, that they got a good start, because yeah, they're not a great game for them either.
No.
Well, there's only 2 points between Mumsy and Sato, and Izzy and Nosif, we literally were saying before we went into that last game that they needed to have a conversation. They needed to work out what was going wrong and reset, and Takata, it looks like they've done just that.
100%. I mean, these two French duos have been neck to neck since a couple games ago. Now they seem to just be going up together on the leaderboard. 7th place is where they finished in this last match, and honestly, they've been looking quite good, not playing on their home setups and still getting the job.
That to be honest, you got to believe in yourself, surely, right? But nice to see these guys actually finding some success. Of course, you know, they're a team that we've seen performing together for so long. They're sort of two staples of the EU competitive scene. Never quite made it to the very top, I feel like, Takata. So I think they still have that sort of maybe some questions about their overall career. But I think their experience, like I sort of talked about at the beginning of the day, will be a key element as to why they're sort of playing well today and using that so effectively in these end games as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've been around for an incredibly
they've been in the top 20, and again, we've got this issue.
They can't get more shit. Sisters, not like be in a relationship. Like that was hard if they got end up like a team. Like the dynamic between a brother and sisters is pretty out there. It's a lot to be experienced. I mean, I don't know, like, if the world would be as curious as I am. It's gotta be weird.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like, are you at the point where, like, if one of your friends is, like, interested in your sister, does that piss you off? Or are you kind of like, if you're gonna be good to her, if you're, like, actually interested in her?
Great question. My friend, no, I wouldn't appreciate it. Not lie, just because I was thinking my friends with worth of that.
If something's dating your sister or whatever, then you realize you think all your friends are shit.
No, yeah, you have something else in mind. Yeah. But it's just, well, I call friends, bro. I mean, this is from my perspective. They look at her like it's their sister-in-law. You know, I've been walking to the day. I've been, around since she was little. I mean, if they have a want for her, it's like weird because she was 7. You know what I'm saying? Better.
Yeah, I heard. When you hear about somebody like marrying someone and they realize that they knew this person when they were 5 or something, it's like,
I feel
for sure. Was there like a moment when you realized, like, my sister's getting hot. Like, this is going to be like, it's not going to just be like once in a while. Like, we're going to say my sister's hot.
So, like, I never had that thought, that exact thought you had, but the world had shown me that thought, if that makes sense. Like, they sexualized her when she was 12, 13. Yeah. Like, she would be on, we have a reality show, and the comments would be bugging about the young girl. Yeah, she's not. They get her off the hallway. I was at her hero, and I'm about to fight 3 drunk men at like 15 because they talk about a 13-year-old. Like, I definitely realized it flipped. Like, oh, she's overdeveloped at young age. You know, like even like overtime would have to tell her to put on a shirt during the interview.
Yeah. Well,
And like, you know, like, yeah.
Like, you're learning how the world works, but you're like kind of constantly seeing perspective of that. Is that accurate? Like, is the chemistry all throughout them?
for sure. And just being so young, like, when I was younger, I had I still have big ones now, but I feel like they were younger. No, I'm just saying. No, I feel like they were low-key bigger. Like, I'm looking at, like, a lot of my friends will say, like, yeah, when you were younger, your like, dudes were big. I don't know, like, baby fat or whatever it is, but yeah, it's like, it was really weird. I'm just so young and everything.
Around that, like, real big dudes, but, like, I remember that there were girls when I was, like, 12, and they just got, like, super early, and it was not a good thing. They were, like, fun, super weird.
Like that combo with being known to.
But being known to, though, it's like,
crazy.
it's crazy, yeah.
Our DMs at a young age.
Oh, yeah, we're crazy.
I mean, I'm not gonna say names.
Oh, yeah, when I
was rappers.
When I was like 14, 15,
Bro, you did
crazy.
a lot of people's
Oh,
careers.
oh, God.
Oh, God, bro. Like that. Like, seriously.
Yeah, not super bad.
I mean, on one hand, like, probably some of it's a mistake, but
Maybe, yes.
probably not all of them.
Yeah. They,
It's kind of scary to think about.
it is sad. It is sad.
But there's another one.
But yeah.
No, sorry. I don't even want to put that in the air for a second.
Yeah, I mean, shit.
It's not
95%.
It's a mistake, but
Maybe, yes.
I'll say not all.
Yeah, not all. Yeah. I'd say 95%. So, sure.
For sure, I feel like